All righty, same studio, same fantastic dudes. New year, what's up, fantasy fanatics? Thanks for watching this brand spanking new 2019 edition of The Sweat.
He, of course, Emerson Lotzia. I'm Adam Kaufman. We got a busy hour on the way for you. NFL playoffs are here. Wild card weekend begins Saturday. I can't wait.
I'm with you in that boat.
I think we're all looking forward to that. Of course, the Steelers not going to be part of that. Antonio Brown reportedly wants out.
Little drama, mama. There are 9 games in the association tonight, plus another half dozen on the ice. And if we have time, we'll even mix in some baseball because, yeah, the Yankees added a 5-time All-Star.
Scared me. I thought it was April. All right, let's start with football because, of course, we're starting with football. DK Live's Reed Fowler and Jeff Elric here with us. Happy New Year, guys.
You too, Koff.
By the way, golf is starting this week. Way to mention it. Way to really promote the site there, guys.
Okay, no, actually, that's a great point, Jeff. We do have some golf in the show. Pat Mayo will help you out with the tournament in Hawaii this week.
Well, if it's
Tournament of Champions. Thanks for doing our job for us, Jeff.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. But this is NFL Price Check, Wild Card Slate Edition. So we want to know if these players will return value on their salaries. Capiche? Capiche. Phillip Rivers is first. $5,900 facing a Ravens defense that finished the regular season allowing the fewest total yards per game. Baltimore's top 5 in passing and rushing defense, and most importantly, second in points against. Can Rivers overcome it, Jeffrey?
I mean, look, he's Phillip Rivers. He's definitely, probably a Hall of Fame quarterback, yada, yada. He can overcome it. At the same time, you're looking at this slate from a fantasy perspective, it's really hard for me to click on Phillip Rivers for the quarterback position. Baltimore's allowed 2 300-yard passers all season. They've both been Baker Mayfield. The Chargers tend to try and play down to a slower-paced style. I know people like Anthony Lynn as a head coach right now, but he's not what you'd call an aggressive head coach. I think they're going to try and pound Melvin Ingram and kind of play a Ravens style of game here, which might hurt them. And now, look, I mean, like I said, Rivers could still overcome this into a big fantasy day, but I think you look at the rushing quarterbacks on this slate, I just don't want to take the chance. I think taking a shot with a guy like Mike Williams or maybe Keenan Allen, one of his receivers, but I don't really want to use Phillip Rivers this week. So I guess what I'm saying is I think he's going to probably more likely than not return less than value.
What do you think here, Reed? Because he didn't look very good against the Ravens earlier this year.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Patrick Mahomes might have also done that too, Jeff. But even if it's the case, right, I mean, these guys, especially with Baker and Patrick Mahomes, their volume is there. They average 46 pass attempts around there in these contests where the Ravens put up or got 300 plus put up on them. And that hasn't been really Phillip Rivers' calling card, and it didn't have to be, right? Melvin Gordon is a guy who's been really well. And if Jeff was saying, hey, look, you can't click on it, you can click on someone who's just a little bit more expensive, and Andrew Luck, who gets a Houston defense who's giving up a ton of pass yards. And so that's a guy that I'd rather pay up for than Rivers at this price tag. I mean, Russ Wilson, you look at Dallas giving up top 10 in terms of rush yards to opposing quarterbacks. It's not really Russ's game this year, but at the same time, it's going to be tough where he's priced at, especially with that Ravens defense playing so well. So I'm with Jeff here.
Yeah, by the way, Week 16, that loss to the Ravens, didn't throw a touchdown. The only game this season he did not throw a touchdown.
Yeah,
so,
a couple of picks as well. All right, so you guys both out on Phillip Rivers. Let's try another one. Lamar Miller, 4,900 facing the Colts. He looked healthy in his return from an ankle sprain on Sunday, scored a touchdown, barely fell short of 1,000 yards on the season, but should carry the load at home this weekend. So is Miller a must-play at that price, Reed?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, must is always, you don't really have to, but at 4,900, especially against a Colts defense, this is probably their most susceptible area where you can take advantage of. He's only averaging about 3 targets per game at home. Houston is running the ball about 45% of the time at home. That's a 9th highest. And so he does have volume upside in this contest, averaging around 7 total touches at home. What you do like about Miller and what you do like about Houston is that they average the 9th or top 10 most red zone opportunities at home. And Miller's a guy who's shown that he can have those big plays. We saw it already earlier this season where he rushed it with that 90-plus yard touchdown. So, yeah, 4,900, especially in this game alone. You don't trust Marlon Mack too much on the other side of the ball. So, yeah, I do like – and Alfred Blue and these guys aren't really eating into that too much, obviously, with him seeing about 84% Miller is in that snap count. So, yeah, I think at 4,900 is a good price.
Jeff, it's on your screen. Miller in his previous meeting with the Colts went over 100 total yards, scored a touchdown this year. So what do you think? Must play 4,900?
Yeah, he's not a must play at all for me. I mean, look at the Colts defense. Yeah, they've given up the second most receptions to the running back position, but Reed already alluded to it. Lamar Miller's, I wouldn't say he's a nothing in the pass game, but he's like the fifth option for the Texans. They just don't really utilize the running back in the pass game very much. And that really takes away his upside in this matchup because, yes, he did go for 100 yards against Indy in their first matchup, but the Indy run defense is pretty good. They've allowed the 9th fewest rushing yards to opposing running backs all season. They haven't allowed, I think it's since week 8 or something, a 100-yard rusher or whatever. I guess it was the last time they played Lamar Miller maybe. But the point is, this is an underrated defense. And the way the Texans use Miller, it's really not going to attack the weakness of the Colts secondary. I see this more as a game with Deshaun Watson is going to have to do things with his feet and things with his arms if they want to win. I think I'd much rather take a shot with a guy like Kiki Kute coming back as a value play for the Texans this week over Miller.
Well, Amari Cooper resurrecting his career in Dallas. Now he'll play his first postseason game for the Cowboys opposite the Seahawks Saturday. 7,500, averaging 8.5 targets per game since joining the boys. Is he worth that price, Jeff? Hasn't hit double-digit points since week 14.
Yeah, I guess I'm going down with the Amari Cooper ship this week. I really like the spot for him. There's a bunch of reasons why. I mean, the first is just you look at the Seattle secondary. I think it's probably their cornerbacks, probably the weakest part of their defense. They were 8th last in DVOA against opposing #1 wide receivers this year. So, giving up 6 over 100-yard games to opposing wide receivers. Again, most of those guys were big names too. So this sets up as a spot for Cooper where you'd expect him to take advantage of those weaker matchups, whether it's Trey Flowers or Shaq Griffin he's getting matched up at. They're both good matchups for him on paper. Supposedly, like, he should be able to take advantage of it. So that's good. And then you also look at the fact 3 of his biggest fantasy games since he's joined the Cowboys have come at home in Dallas. So, this game obviously taking place in Dallas. So I think everything here is leaning towards me seeing a bounce back of sorts for Cooper, because obviously he's coming in this game off of three really slow games where he was under 10 DK points. So people are going to be off him here. I like the setup, though, for Amari Cooper this week.
Reed, 3rd highest priced wide receiver on the weekend slate. What makes you think he returns value?
Yeah, it's the targets, right? He's seeing 9 targets over those last 4 games. Yeah, the points aren't translating in fantasy, but he's still seeing those opportunities. And Jeff alluded to it. You look at that Seattle defense, were they really susceptible to big games or big gains? That's in the wide receiver department. Across the middle, especially, is where you like Amari Cooper working in that slot, whoever it is. We've talked about it ad nauseum with that secondary. If it's Trey Flowers who converted safety, now a quarterback a little bit slower, and Cooper, for what it's worth, right, he's one of the crisper route runners in the NFL. Now he gets the Seattle defense, not that good necessarily attacking that pass. You like that T.Y. Hilton. You like where his price tag is, too, because T.Y. Hilton's right there. I think he's going to garner a lot of ownership. And, again, Cooper is a guy who's getting a lot of targets, and that's where you want to attack the Seattle defense. So I like it, too.
Well, you look at that last game, Week 17 with the Giants. 11 targets, only 31 yards, though. It's just freaking gross.
They're looking his way, though.
Yeah, they're peering in. Zach Ertz, 6,400 facing the Bears in Chicago. The tight end had a record-setting year. Great regular season for him. This is a tough matchup, though, Reed. The Bears elite against the pass.
Yeah, you have to really treat Zach Ertz like a wide receiver, right? Especially with the volume and just his skill level. But at the same time, right, we're talking about tight ends here. Ebron is the obvious pivot off of him. He's going to garner a lot of ownership, too. He's cheaper. So I like the GPP play if you want to go to Ertz. They're going to have to attack Ertz here in this defense. But you're right, Chicago's 3rd versus tight ends per DVOA. You look at Ebron, who's cheaper. Houston is 23rd in that same metric. 4th best for tight ends in terms of points scored, DK fantasy points scored. It's 15.3 over the season. So you like Ebron, especially in the red zone. He's the 3rd, I think, in red zone receiving in terms of tight ends. So you like that upside for Ebron. Again, Ebron's going to garner a lot of ownership. I like Ertz for that in terms of GPPs, but it's going to be a tough one because Chicago is one of the best defenses against tight ends this season.
Jeff, can you trust Ertz here at all, or are you also looking to pivot maybe to
I
Ebron?
really don't, actually, and I much prefer Ebron this week. And even if he is going to be a little bit higher owned, I'd still prefer Ebron. Look, the Bears, they just don't allow that many receptions to the tight end position. I think it's the 11th fewest in the league thus far. And the thing about Ertz is he's not a big play guy. Like, you need him to get volume. And then you look at the 3 games that he's played with Nick Foles this year. He had the one monster game where Foles really took advantage of a weaker defense, and then he had 3 receptions in the other 2. So Nick Foles isn't a guy who's just going to hone in on Zach Ertz regardless, like Carson Wentz did. He's going to spread it around, and if Ertz is open, he's going to probably target him a lot. But this is the Bears defense who just does a good job at shutting down opposing tight ends. I just don't see that happening very often. You're going to need him to find the end zone. The Bears have only allowed 5 touchdowns to opposing tight ends this year. It just adds up to a tough spot. I'd much rather take advantage of like a value tight end if you don't want to use Ebron either. I think Dallas Goedert, even at 2,600, is playable because he's seen almost the same number of targets in 2 of the 3 games as Ertz. So everything saying to me, I'd much prefer Ebron over Ertz this week.
Wonderful work, guys. Much more football on the way. Next, we're going to hit the hardwood with our NBA experts. But first, Antonio Brown is unhappy, as you mentioned at the top of the show. So what's that mean for the Studley Steelers wideout?
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen, and with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash, a lot to process the last few days about the state of Antonio Brown as a Pittsburgh Steeler. The All-Pro wideout goes from an injury-related game-time decision Sunday to an unhappy worker skipping shifts, practices, apparently throwing footballs at his quarterback, and reportedly wants to be traded out of the Steel City. The latest, Mike Tomlin spoke today and said Brown did not play Sunday against the Bengals due to injury and lack of information. Addressing the rumored trade request, Tomlin said, "We have not received a formal request," mentioned several times he won't speculate. Mark Caballi covers the Steelers for The Athletic, and he proclaims Brown isn't going anywhere. Pittsburgh would absorb a $21.12 million dead money cap hit if they trade Brown prior to June 1st. Caballi's point is there's no sense in trading him. His headline reads, Brown and the team need to, quote, kiss and make up. As many have pointed out, this is not typical Steelers drama. You got to get everyone together here. Ownership, management, Mike Tomlin, Ben Roethlisberger. They were in the heat of the mess. Heck, bring Juju. He can come. Bring Fortnite. Have some fun. Of course, you got to bring Brown. Get in the room and don't let him leave until this mess is sorted and figured out. They got plenty of time until week 1 next year. You need to do this because the Steelers' championship window is shrinking ever so quickly right before our eyes.
That's an animated Glasheen right there. All right, we're going to get more on that later. Listen, he's bringing the fire. Time for Hoops with DK Live contributors Mike Barner and Alex Reclean, plus Jeff Eisenband, part of the DraftKings family as well. Guys, hello.
Hello.
All right. Hola. Hola, bro. All right, let's roll. NBA pick and roll. We'll give you 2 options for tonight's slate, and you choose the one you like best. Grizzlies guard Mike Conley will cost you 7,700 against the Pistons. And he's reached 35 DK points in 5 of 6 games. But on the other hand, Luka Doncic has hit 40 fantasy points in 6 of 8 for the Mavericks. He's an extra $100 in Charlotte. Who do you like, Mike?
I'll take Doncic. I think both have similar upside, but Doncic has a slightly more favorable matchup since both the Mavericks and the Hornets are in the top half of the league in pace of play. The Grizzlies, on the other hand, they play at the slowest pace. I also love some of the cheaper options at point guard, like Tyus Jones at 5,600 and Terry Rozier at 5,300. So I'll pass on paying up for Conley.
All right, what are you going to do here, Alex? Conley, Doncic, you want to give us a third option here?
I'm going to go with Luka. I kind of like both of these guys, but the $100 price difference is not enough to push me away from Luka, who has done better over the last 5 games. The matchups are about even. Over the last 10 days, the opponents, the Hornets and the Pistons, have almost identical paces. Both of these guys get a lot of value from assists. Hornets give up a ton of assists. Pistons give up very few.
Jeff, yeah, $100 difference here. So where are you going to go?
Yeah, was I going to say Luka? Maybe, but for the sake of this, I'll now throw in Mike Conley, and I'll just toss in, Mike Conley, one of the most consistent point guards throughout the season, and playing at home. I think that matters. I think that he's in Grind City tonight, so think about that when you're making your pick.
Just one of them could have said his name is Luka, and then gone into some sort of musical. All right, whatever.
No.
All right, no, I'll just keep going. Yeah, I'm going to go over here. Alex, there was a time we thought Paul George would play for the Lakers. It seemed like destiny, pal. But tonight, the Thunder star facing L.A. He's 9,200. Ben Simmons just a bit cheaper, 8,900 in Phoenix. He's going to put up numbers. We know that. He's not going to hit any threes. We also are well aware of that. So who's your pick here?
I'm going to go with PG. Ben Simmons, this trend of him starting to shoot a little bit more outside the paint is a good development for his career, but it's bad for his short-term fantasy value. And the matchup against a LeBron-free Lakers is fantastic for Paul George. And it's one of those situations where the matchup is better than it looks on paper because statistically, small forwards against the Lakers are facing LeBron, and Paul George, of course, is not.
Good argument there, Jeff. What do you think? You going to side with that, or are you going to maybe think about Simmons?
Yeah, I'm going to side with that, and because I don't know if you're a casual NBA fan, maybe you don't realize it, but Paul George is at the point that he's now being thrown around the MVP conversation. From a DFS standpoint, he put up an 84 piece a couple games ago. He's had 50 plus in 6 of his last 10. And then on top of that, we're talking about probably Brandon Ingram guarding him this game. You have to go with Paul George, but just again, for the sake of argument, Jimmy Butler out for the Sixers, so that might help some of the pro Ben Simmons people out there.
You know, we weren't doing live shows over New Year's, but if you failed to tune into the first annual Sweaties, shame on you. Paul George, our first half MVP. He's been that good. So, Mike, you going to make it unanimous here?
Nope. I'll go with Simmons. I think the Jimmy Butler being out due to illness is big. Simmons should see plenty of scoring opportunities against one of the worst defensive teams in the league. He's also $300 cheaper, so he's got the edge in my eyes.
All right, Joel Embiid is fresh off his 3rd straight 60-point effort in the fantasy world, so he's 10-6 in Phoenix. Karl Anthony Towns is scorching hot and visiting Boston with a price tag of $9,600. Who's the better fit, Jeff?
I think you have to take out the success that Karl Anthony Towns has had and just look at the fact that he's playing the Celtics, that tough front line, Al Horford, Aaron Baines, Marcus Morris, and no Kyrie. So you have to imagine the Celtics are going to be grinding it out. I'm going to go with Embiid here. I think that not only is he playing against a trash defense in the Phoenix Suns, but he just, how Joel Embiid is. He wants to take down DeAndre Ayton tonight.
All right, Mike, where are you going? You can save $1,000 going with Towns.
I'll save the $1,000. Towns has scored at least 69.8 DK points in 3 straight. Timberwolves are shorthanded themselves without Jeff Teague, Derrick Rose, Robert Covington. Yes, it's a great matchup for Embiid. I am a little worried. He missed a game recently with a knee injury. He played 35 minutes last night in the first game of back-to-back. I think their ceilings are fairly similar, so I'll take the savings and go with Towns.
Alex, hit me with it.
I'm going with Towns. The C's are missing Aaron Baines and Williams, so they're without some of their better big defenders, which is something I like. It's a small sample size, but in 6 back-to-backs this season, Joel Embiid is averaging 4 fewer points, shooting below 40%, getting half a block fewer per game. So I'm a little bit worried about his production in back-to-backs so far this season. I'm going to stick with the hot hand in Embiid.
Alex, where'd you take down that buck?
I'm an avid hunter.
Yeah,
that's great.
Avid. All right. Yeah. All right. Great stuff, guys. Hang out. We'll talk to you. It looked like paper mache or something. Yeah. We'll talk to you again a little bit here, guys. Later on, Tears of Joy. Tell us about it when we come back. More football on the way after we hit the links with Pat Mayo and not Jeff Elric for a look at the Century Tournament of Champions. That is right. Yeah. Golf season is here.
The one thing that I will really go to the mat with Xander is if he's not on Bermuda, play him. He gains a ton of strokes putting on POA, a ton of strokes putting on bentgrass, and is like bad on Bermuda. And this is a Bermuda week. Even when you go back and look at the wins that he's had. So he's had 3 in the past 2 years. Greenbrier, bentgrass. Tour Championship, bentgrass. That place in China, I believe that was also bentgrass. Now, I could be wrong on that because obviously, let's see here. Course breakdown. No, I'll go back and look at that, but I'm pretty sure it was bentgrass as well. That always concerns me a little bit.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, and these are obviously, from what I've read, it's Bermuda and it's incredibly slow Bermuda. So that's something I'm not going to weigh it too heavily. But again, when you're looking at 2 guys, if one of them has glaring splits in terms of surface or speed, that is something you want to take note of.
So like I'm looking at it right now of the Bermuda grass places that he's played really well at. The Players from this year was the only one of his best finishes. He came second. He lost strokes putting.
Yeah, and the Players is a tournament that I don't want to say it's more luck, but it's such a drastic thing with so many hazards. It's hard to glean a lot from that because it's more about he obviously didn't implode. There's a lot of guys who, at the Players, it's such a polarizing course. It's tough to draw parallels.
And if you look at the worst putting performances of his career, Honda, Bermuda, Wells Fargo, Bermuda, Sony, Bermuda, Farmers is POA, the PGA in 17 was Bermuda, Travelers is Bermuda, Career Builder, I believe, is POA. So it's not great for him. I mean, if I'm trying to give reasons to not play someone, it's not that I dislike Xander. If he's ball strikes and gains all these opportunities and birdies, looks like he's going to be fine. And he is one of the skill players that could win from down in the pack. But it's so dicey this week that you really have to make strong cases against guys. Like, I really like Molinari. I mean, Bryson's my favorite play on the board. I'm sure I'm not alone on that. He's $8,700. I like him a lot. I'm going to be using him. But Molinari, no one seems to have any interest in using, and his form isn't all that great since the Ryder Cup. So I have no idea where he's going to be at right now. But if we're going to say we can get like an average putting week from Francesco Molinari, he should be near the top of this field. Like, guy is lights out with wedges.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm trying to look. That's really... because in a week like this, we have Bryson and we have Patrick Reed, who I have no problem with either, but I'm not going to be alone, like you just said. The three guys in between them in terms of salary, we got Webb, we got Mole, and we got Xander. I would like to get one-offs on a couple of them, whether it's Webb. He withdrew from the Hero. I don't know why he did that. I don't think it was injury related. So all systems go there. And then, we just talked about Xander and Molinari's. Yeah, he's been impressive. So I'll look to take one-offs because I think if you get the big ownership discount, it's worth going. And I can be a little, again, thinking of that balanced lineup that I was talking about earlier, this could possibly be my third man in, and I feel pretty comfortable with that.
I was even thinking that if you do want to attack this area, I do think that Patrick Reed ends up being the most owned player on this entire slate. There's so much juice with him. Like, he was 25-1 to open, and that was before Rose, Tiger, and Phil all withdrew. And now he's been bet down to 14-1. He's almost identical odds to Bryson, so there's so much money coming in on Patrick Reed. We know the course history that and he's so cheap at 8,200 that I just know people are going to have him. Like, that Dustin Rahm Reed build is going to be super common. So to get away from some of that ownership, if you still want to use Reed, starting your teams with Bryson and working your way down is a way to alleviate ownership, only because so few people are going to have that build. It might not be the best choice. That's one way to get away from it. But I'm thinking about full fade on Patrick Reed, which kind of terrifies me, but I think I'm getting away from like 37% of the field. And if he doesn't come inside the top 5, I just have a much greater shot of actually winning a GPP.
All right, thank you, Mayo. It's funny. We turn to DK Live's Reed Fowler and Jeff Elric for golf talk a lot of the time, but just not all the time, because they're back with us to look ahead to the AFC Wildcard Showdown contest this weekend. Playoff football, you got to love it.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff. Well, let's get some early thoughts anyway. Colts Texans Saturday afternoon. If you had to make an early pick for your captain slot, because you do right now, who is it, Reed?
Yeah, I was initially going to go with Eric Ebron because he gives you price savings, but I also want to attack T.Y. Hilton. Andrew Luck is that guy who gets you both of those in terms of attacking this Houston pass defense that is really bad. If you look at what they're able to, or what they've given up 300-plus yards, I think, over the last 4 or 5 games in the passing category. And T.Y. Hilton and both Eric Ebron present the highest upside in terms of red zone targets. You look at Andrew Luck. He also, throwing 36 pass attempts over the last 3 games, but this guy has 3 or 4 games where he's rushed the ball 6 or 7 times. And so we always forget about his ability to rush. He hasn't done it this much, obviously trying to keep himself healthy for this exact reason, to be in the postseason. But at 17.7, he's going to cost you quite a bit. If you want to obviously save price, Eric Ebron is that guy. Red zone target, he's getting the most on this team, or close to it, if not T.Y. Hilton. So Andrew Luck for me.
Who are you going with, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ebron. It's just such a good matchup. Houston is just not good at covering the tight end. You look at some of the games they've given up. It's not that they're just, season long. They've just been kind of seeping points to tight ends. They've given up some massive games to guys like Rob Gronkowski, Zach Ertz, big name tight ends who've come in, dominated this defense. And I really feel like, especially in a showdown format, if Ebron has one of those games, you're going to need him in the captain spot. And again, I like the idea of using Andrew Luck there too, because if it does spread out a little bit, you obviously get luck against a really good pass defense. But Ebron gives you savings, and he's such a dominant force in the red zone for the Colts that I think it's between him or T.Y. Hilton really, who's going to have the big game. And you just have to figure with how badly Hilton has burned the Texans over his career that given this is a playoff game, they're going to do everything they can to stop him. So to me, this all just speaks to a big game for Eric Ebron. I think that's where I would go for my captain's pick right now.
Well, Luck, his regular season numbers in this matchup, the 2 previous games, they're just stupid. About 850 passing yards, 6 touchdowns. He's been ridiculous. You've seen the numbers hopefully flashing on your screen. But, guys, who's the best value in this game? Jeff, we can start with you. Do you like one of the cheaper backs maybe, a Houston wideout? Where are you looking?
There's a couple. I mean, I'll throw out Kiki Kute. I already mentioned him as the sort of Houston play because I really think they're going to have to utilize him in this game. But my favorite value play is the Colts defense. 3,000 just does not cost you very much. And just look at the matchup. I mean, the Houston, again, I don't think most people realize this because the Houston offense has been good this year. They gave up the most sacks in the league, and it was almost record-setting for how many sacks they gave up. This is a bad O-line, and then you also add in the fact that Deshaun Watson just sometimes holds on to the ball too much because he tries to do too much, and he just ends up taking some big hits. So the Colts pass rush has been kind of, hot or cold all season, but definitely good enough to get off in this spot. And again, I just like the Colts. I like them to win, and if I like that, I think I got to like their defense at 3K here against just a horrid O-line. So I think the Colts defense is a really good play this week.
Reed, you going with the defense also or looking elsewhere?
Yeah, I like that call. Even Houston's defense presents some upside, too, because Andrew Luck, we've seen it, right? We've seen him have a proclivity to throw interceptions and make the stupid-headed play where he just throws it up. And you have that defensive line in Houston that can really put pressure on this guy. Although Indy's offensive line has been one of the best stories, one of the best comebacks, keeping this guy, Andrew Luck, upright. I'm looking at Dontrell Inman, though, as well. If you look at these 3 receivers, Pascal, Rogers, and Inman's the guy that's going to be the most expensive but gives you those red zone targets. He's got 3 red zone targets and 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. If it's not Ebron or Hilton, or that third option has been Dontrell Inman, he's a little iffy in terms of his health, so always obviously check that status up until come lock. But he's a guy that Luck looks to if it's not those first 2 guys in the red zone.
All right, the other AFC game is in Baltimore against the Chargers on Sunday afternoon. Give me captain's pick, Reed. A little birdie named Adam tells me Jeff is picking Philip Rivers, which, by the way, it is important to mention. Salaries aren't even out yet for these showdowns. So
yeah, so it makes the job a little tougher for you guys, really.
But that's why we have you here, and that's why we're not doing it.
Yeah, you're the experts.
Oh, that's pretty nice of you. Kaufman calls experts. So, I like the Ravens defense in this spot just because when we look at Philip Rivers, I know it's going to be a nice story, and leave it to the Chargers to have one of their historic seasons to draw the Ravens their first playoff game, which is going to be a tough one. I like that Ravens D. If you look at Rivers' postseason career, his 85 passer rating overall, 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And this Ravens defense, they're really, really good. Obviously, when we looked at that game against Cleveland, they gave up a ton of yards to Baker, which has been their Achilles heel, just playing the Browns this entire season. But the Ravens defense, really good. They're second in terms of offensive scores percentage-wise, or second worst for offenses. So from a defense standpoint, they're one of the best. That doesn't allow teams to rack it up. And I don't think Rivers is really going to be in a position to do so. I think it's going to be tough for the Chargers. So I like the Ravens D because it's going to allow you to save. And if you want to play some of those higher price guys like Gordon, the Ravens defense is going to allow you to save.
All right, Jeff, let's pretend you're not putting Philip Rivers in your captain spot. Who's it going to be?
I really want to say Lamar Jackson here, but I'm going to go with the Ravens running back, Kenneth Dixon here. Obviously, we don't know salaries, but he's probably going to be a lot cheaper than Lamar Jackson. And it's kind of along the same thinking as Reed. If you like the Ravens defense, then one of their running backs is probably going to have a massive day. And then from my point of view, Kenneth Dixon is actually their best running back, especially from an all-around perspective. Went for over 100 yards on like 12 carries or something last week. He's a very talented running back, and he's been up and out and in and out over the last 2 or 3 years because of off-the-field issues and injuries. But there's no doubting this guy's talent, and he's in a really, really good spot this week. The Chargers do not defend against the running back position that great, giving up the 4th most receptions to running backs this season. This is how you attack the Chargers defense, in my opinion, and it just makes it a really good spot for him. So I think if you really want to pay up for Lamar Jackson, you can, but I think the big day might come from Dixon here, and I think he's gaining confidence over the last 4 or 5 games, and this is just a really, really good spot for him. And even if the Ravens do get down, he's the back who's going to see work because he's more of the pass-catching back than Gus Edwards. So I really like going with Kenneth Dixon in this spot.
All right, follow the pattern, fellas. Not too difficult. We need a value pick for this game. Looks like a bunch of Ravens to choose from, maybe. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of want to go with a Chargers cheap wideout, but I'm going to go back to the Ravens, go with Mark Andrews, tight end. again, this is just, the Ravens have like 5 tight ends on their roster, and they legitimately will throw them all out there. But Mark Andrews has obviously come across as the most talented from a receiving perspective. Obviously had the massive day the last time these two teams met. And I just feel like his price and in this spot and how well he's worked with Lamar Jackson over the past 3 or 4 games just speaks to how much confidence those two are growing. So Lamar Jackson, not really someone who's going to throw outside to the numbers either. And it's a pretty good spot, again, for Mark Andrews going up against the Chargers defense. So I think Mark Andrews is going to be a really good value play this week. Again, I think, less boom or bust than if you're targeting a wideout anyways this week.
What about you, Reed?
Yeah, Kenny Dixon. So what Jeff mentioned, I think that's a really good play there. If you look at this, both teams, right, the Ravens in terms of how they do, the correlation that works out best with the Ravens defense is when Kenneth Dixon has a good game. Ty Montgomery, if you want to play that Lamar Jackson game, I think is someone, but he's just not seeing the snaps. So I really like that Kenny Dixon call. He's the guy that is seeing the lesser amount, and Gus Edwards doesn't get any targets. And so if you want to go upside, he shouldn't be that highly priced because of that snap count. So I really like Kenneth Dixon as a value play.
I will say this too. I think the one San Diego or one Los Angeles Chargers wideout who's going to be ignored this week is Tyrell Williams, because everyone is going to flock to Mike Williams, who's been playing well, but Tyrell Williams still have big play potential there too. So.
All right, boys, we'll get to the NFC before we are done here. In the meantime, baseball. Now with a 100-game winner, adding a guy who used to flirt with MVP awards.
Yeah, he didn't win.
No, just flirt.
Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The Yankees have a new shortstop. Nope, it's not Manny Machado yet. But at least we have some action in what has been a pretty uneventful MLB offseason so far. Troy Tulowitzki has reportedly agreed to a 1-year deal with the Yankees for the league minimum. The oft-injured shortstop was released by the Blue Jays last month, and Toronto will still be on the hook for $38 million over the next 2 years. The 34-year-old will provide a stopgap at short for the Pinstripes, while Didi Gregorius recovers from Tommy John surgery. Tulowitzki, a 5-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glover, and a 2-time Silver Slugger, but he's only played in 66 games since 2017. He missed all of last season recovering from bone spurs in his heels, but after a good showing and a workout last month, the Yankees decided to give Tulo a shot. Then again, this is simply a what-the-heck signing for New York. It doesn't take them out of the Manny Machado sweepstakes. The Yankees are still reportedly the favorites to land the 26-year-old free agent slugger. This also gives the Pinstripes more flexibility to include a player like Miguel Andujar in a potential trade for pitching. It certainly isn't the big-name signing baseball fans are waiting for, but gets the ball rolling and provides some clarity to the Yanks' plans.
Back here live on The Sweat with you, and yes, we do mean you. He's Adam, I'm Emerson, and our first hockey segment of the year brings with it our DK Live NHL Know-It-All, Mr. Benjamin Zweiman. Zwime time, there they are.
Can't wait to talk hockey with you. Great basketball sweatshirt. Yes. Benny, we have you here to help us pick between, of course, the 2 top choices at each position for tonight's 6-game slate, also known as NHL Face-Off. So let us start at center, where you have Nathan McKinnon, $8,000, visiting in Colorado, and Connor McDavid in Arizona, $7,900. You have to use one of these guys, don't you? Or maybe you fade both. Give us a third option. What do you think? Where are you rolling?
Yeah, I mean, both of them they're pretty interchangeable. Like you said, the salaries are pretty close. But I'm going to go with McKinnon, mostly because the matchup against the Sharks is a lot better. The Sharks have allowed 28 goals over the past 8 games. It's just a better game environment for McKinnon. McDavid's on the road versus the Coyotes. He struggles to generate shots on the road, whereas McKinnon almost never struggles to get shots off. This elevates his floor over McDavid a bit. Also, quality of line mates comes into play. McKinnon's on that top line for the Avs, one of the best lines in the NHL. McDavid, the Oilers, a little lacking in the forward depth department. Ty Ratty is up there with him and Draisaitl. Not really great for me. I think McKinnon's floor, and again, they both have high ceilings on the slate. I think they're relatively interchangeable, but if I had to pick one, I'll go McKinnon.
Okay, fair enough. In the wing department, Johnny Gaudreau will cost you $7,600, so you can flame your game, or you can pay down for a red-hot Phil Kessel, $800 cheaper. What are you going to do, Ben?
Come on, guys.
Go, talk to me.
I'm the president of the Phil Kessel fan club.
I knew that. We just wanted to tee you up. That's all.
All right, fine. Bias aside, though, I am going to go with Phil Kessel tonight. Like you said, he's been red hot. He's so hot right now. Yeah, 10 points in his past 4 games. 6 of those have come on the power play. The Rangers are in the bottom third of the league in penalty killing. Johnny Hockey averages 1 less fantasy point per game on the road. That's a big drop-off. The matchup for him versus the Red Wings is fantastic, so I think Gaudreau is a decent GPP play because his ceiling is pretty good. But I think you got to go with Kessel. He's just as hot. His ceiling is just as high as Gaudreau's. It's still a good matchup against the Rangers. Again, the Flames kind of playing pretty well. Gaudreau's price is up. You're going to save $800 paying down for Kessel. Yeah, I'm going to go with Phil.
I will say, Benny, you look at that picture of Phil Kessel on the screen. He does kind of have the Hansel hair.
Yes, he does.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean.
Too much facial hair, though.
So hot right now. All right, back on the blue line, Sharks D-man Eric Carlson. He's going to run you 5,800 in Colorado. Or would you rather trust, say, Vancouver's Alex Edler at Ottawa for 5,200?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ignore Eric Carlson. He's on a 10-game point streak. Like I mentioned before, the Sharks have been allowing a lot of goals, but they also have been scoring a lot of goals offensively, so they're really hot right now. But yeah, I'm going to go with Edler. Edler was known as one of the top DFS defensemen last season. Very high floor. He gives you a lot of shots and blocks, high ice time. He gets a great matchup versus the Senators tonight. They allow the most DK fantasy points to defensemen this season. I'd expect the ownership to be really high on Eric Carlson tonight. So yeah, maybe lean Carlson in cash games. But I think Edler is a great GPP play at 5,200. You can save some salary there. He's going to skate on that power play. The Senators are a bad penalty killing unit. I'll take Edler at the discounted price.
All right, young man, between the pipes, a couple dudes on the road. Vancouver's Jacob Markstrom for 7-8 at Ottawa, or Mackenzie Blackwood for just north of 7K as the Devils face Dallas. Please point us in the right direction here.
Yeah, I mean, I like both of them as a contrarian plays tonight, but again, bias aside, I think Mackenzie Blackwood is where you have to go. He's, in my eyes, one of the best goaltending options on the slate tonight. He's riding a 2-game shutout streak. Both of those opponents were at home and pretty bad. It was the Canucks and Hurricanes. But still, the Devils have won 3 in a row. They're gaining some momentum despite Taylor Hall being out. Blackwood has played well in both of his road starts this season. He's a rookie, mind you. Plus, the Stars still can't score. They have 16 goals in their past 7 games. They're not getting a lot of goals, so obviously that bodes well for the opposing goaltender. They're still getting a lot of shots, though, and the Devils are allowing a lot of shots. So I expect the saves to be up for Blackwood. Even if he doesn't keep that shutout streak going, at that price, you're really just looking for a guy to get you around 30, 35 saves and not really let too many goals in. So yeah, I like Blackwood. He's one of the best GPP plays tonight, I think.
All right, before we set you free in your Sonic sweatshirt to ponder the future of hockey in Seattle, hit us with your slate-approved pick.
All right, a lot of appealing value plays tonight, but I'm going to go with Brock Lobster. Brock Besser of the Canucks. I mentioned Edler. He's a decent guy to pair with Besser and Elias Pettersson. For the Canucks, they're a great matchup against the Senators. Senators are just hemorrhaging goals. Yeah, I think the Canucks are in a great spot. They're a good spot to buy low. A lot of those guys are going to be cheap tonight. So yeah, Brock Lobster.
Enjoy your evening, Ben. Thanks, bud. We appreciate you. NBA Tears of Joy is coming up immediately following this little snippet with Adam Levitan on avoiding analysis by paralysis.
Any advice on avoiding paralysis by analysis? It seems like a common theme in my losing weeks is doing too much research on suboptimal spots and trying to get too cute with thin plays. I think you have 2 separate questions here, Kurt. First, on paralysis by analysis. Yes, I think that's a problem. The easy answer is you need to streamline your process. Figure out what stats, what data is important to you, and look at that each week. Like, preferably at the same time each week, really, so you're in a routine. So like on Mondays, I look at player usage from the week before. Not just raw snap counts, but I know I want to be looking at how players were used. On Tuesdays, I look at my results and I look at the contest and I make sure that my game selection is on point. On Wednesdays, I start looking at usage and opportunity for sub 5K wide receivers, because I think that's just an important thing to be aware of every week when we're paying up for running backs every week, looking at their yards per route run and ADOT and everything. But whatever you want to do, like whatever you want to do, decide what you think is important to research and stick to that. It shouldn't be like I'm overwhelmed with research. I read too many things this week or whatever, like if you're in the same routine every week and it's what you think is important, I think you should stick to it. The second part from the question about getting too cute, and I know I've said this many times, but like if you're playing the extremely large field GPPs, then you're going to lose most weeks, right? Even if you're good. So it's not because the plays that you made were too cute. It's because playing those things optimally means, if you're going for first place, it means taking on a lot of lower floors. Like the weeks you lose because your cute play didn't perform, you may have actually been playing right. So, now if your cute plays are actually like really bad plays, if they had no shot at opportunity, or if they were, their usage relative to their price or ownership makes them really bad plays, then yeah, you need to reevaluate. But, like when you say that your losing weeks are trying to get too cute within plays, if you're playing large field GPPs, then yeah. Now, if you're getting too cute in cash, then yeah, you need to reevaluate for sure.
All right, we teased it. Now it's time we deliver on our promise. Say hello one more time to our NBA panel this evening. DK Live contributors, Mike Barner, Alex McLean, Jeff the Empire Eisenband. That's usually because you have the Empire State Building in the backdrop, but now you
Not
just
tonight.
Yeah, no, man. You go back to the old you.
But I'll keep the nickname.
Yeah, there you go. Now we'll see if it sticks. All right, gentlemen, can I please have your attention? This is important. Before we get to Tears of Joy, what late-breaking lineup or injury news are you keeping a very close eye on right now?
Good question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I didn't even write it. Alex.
The Celtics just announced that Al Horford will be on a minutes restriction tonight. And when you combine that with Robert Williams and Aaron Baines out, that's a big deal. It's probably Tice time. Jonathan Simmons is out. We probably already know LeBron, Jimmy Butler, Robert Covington all out. Those are kind of the big storylines that I'm paying attention to in my lineups.
Mike, any care to add?
No, I think luckily a lot of the big news is already broken. Kyrie Irving's out, so Rozier's in a good spot. Rose and Teague are out, so that helps Tyus Jones. Anthony Davis is also expected to play, so hopefully that holds up after the New Year's Eve late scratch debacle.
Anyone we haven't hit, Jeff?
Eric Gordon is unlikely to play, for what that's worth. And how about this? No Dwayne Wade, but Dion Waiters is available to make his season debut.
Well,
okay, we'll keep an eye on that.
Let's just spend the next 5 minutes on that alone.
Jeff, while you're here, let's go ahead and dive down to Tier 5. Who was your guy and why?
So my guy here is DeAndre Jordan. I've been playing him up a little bit, and just for the record, he had a bad game last game. I think he only had 2 points, but he's had at least double-digit rebounds in 11 straight games. Plus, the Charlotte Hornets, 21st in rebounding. In terms of reliability, I think it's disrespectful that DeAndre Jordan is in Tier 5.
Okay, well, that's not our fault. I would just like to throw that out there.
Yeah, we don't put those together. We just ask the question.
Not calling you guys out.
It's okay, even if you feel like doing so. Mike, who do you like in Tier 5?
I like TJ Warren. He's made significant improvements from behind the arc this year. He's one of the main scoring threats on the Suns. The Sixers don't really have much depth at power forward, which will only be exacerbated by playing the second night of a back-to-back set. So I like Warren to thrive here.
I like Mike's house. Some nice built-ins.
It is very nice.
Thanks. That's all my wife. It's not me. So
yeah, I was going to say, it's okay. I feel your pain there, bud. Okay, Alex, you're finally up. Tier 5.
I like a couple of the point guards here, Trae Young and Chris Dunn. But I actually also want to talk about DeAndre Jordan in a bounce-back game against the Hornets that are giving Willie Hernan-Gomez his first start of the year. Hernan-Gomez is a pretty good rebounder, but he's not DeAndre Jordan, and we all know how DeAndre cares about his image. So I expect him to come out kind of feisty after his 2-rebound, 10-game outing last game out.
Okay, after 5 comes 6. I know that because I have 3 young boys, so counting is a bit of a specialty in mine now.
Sesame Street in your house,
I know, right? Yeah, so Tier 6, I think is where we're going with this. Mike, start us off. Who do you like?
I like Tyus Jones. He's played at least 36 minutes in both of the last 2 games. He scored 34 and 41 DK points, respectively. There's no one behind him really to push for playing time, so I think he's got a fairly high floor.
Jeff?
Well, I'm going to change my original pick because Alex brought up the Al Horford minutes restriction. I'm going to go with Jason Tatum. I know he's been struggling, but no Kyrie, no limited Al Horford. I think you got to go Tatum here.
Empire, good pick. Alex?
When I'm not plywood deer hunting, I always go minutes hunting. And so I'm looking at Trevor Ariza at 39.3 minutes per game as a Wizard, matching up against a terrible Hawks team starting rookie Kevin Huerter. Tatum and Tyus Jones are also interesting, but give me Ariza.
Now I just picture Alex walking around his apartment with a Nerf gun, plywood deer hunting. Sounds exciting. How about a slated brew pick before you go, Alex?
Kyrie doesn't miss many games, but when he does, Rozier is an auto play. 2 games without Kyrie this season. Rozier is averaging 34 minutes and 40 DraftKings points.
Jeffrey, your lock of the night.
I don't want to say Bradley Beal every night the rest of the year, but that's where I'm going tonight against a bad Hawks team. No John Wall. I just like Beal in almost every game now for the Wizards.
Okay, so that will be your slated proof pick every night from here on out the rest of the season. Mike, wrap us up.
I'm going to go off the beaten path and say Willy Hernan-Gomez. He's only priced at $3,800. He's going to start with Cody Zeller out. Hernan-Gomez has only played at least 20 minutes a game 3 times this season, but in those games he averaged 14.7 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks. He's so cheap that he frees up a lot of money for the rest of your lineup, so he's locked into mine.
Legendary New York Nick.
Yeah.
Thank you, Empire.
Something like that. All right, guys, thank you very much. We are going to get some early takes from our NFL panel on this weekend's NFC Showdown matchups coming up next. Of course, we already did the AFC. Got to hit the other side.
Which includes the Cowboys when you're talking NFC. And I'm being told you had a solid chat here about them earlier with a man who goes by the name Nick Eatman.
I did. It was fun.
All right, let's show it to you.
NFL playoffs are here. That means the start of Wild Card Weekend. I'm Adam Kaufman with Nick Eatman, writes for the Dallas Cowboys website. DallasCowboys.com obviously covers that team. And Nick, Dallas hosting Seattle. But first, that Week 17 win over the Giants, it didn't do anything in the standings. We know Dallas was already locked into the 4 seed. But what did it do for morale to win that game late the way it did? Not to mention, of course, doing it without Ezekiel Elliott.
I think that's one of the biggest things right there about doing it without some of the key players. If you had to say who are your 3 best offensive guys on the team, you would say Zeke, Zach Martin, Tyron Smith. All 3 of those guys made the Pro Bowl. All 3 of those guys did not play. And so, for them to win a game, led by Dak really had to carry them throughout the game. A lot of people were surprised that he was still playing. I don't know if momentum really matters in this league. It seems more of a basketball term to me, but confidence does. And I think it really gave this team some confidence in their quarterback, confidence in their offense, and other skilled players that had really big games that, we're going to need you at some point, and it was good for them to show up in that game.
Well, and I mentioned Wilson. How's Dallas defense hope to slow him down? Because this is a guy who's been maybe a bit limited in terms of his mobility as compared to some other years, but he's got a solid arm, makes very few mistakes, and that completion percentage, passer rating, and touchdown to interception ratio, all as good as they've been in a few years.
Yeah, and I think that, honestly, the reason why it's been so good is that he doesn't have to do everything anymore. And we saw that with Tony Romo. Tony Romo was doing everything, and then when DeMarco Murray and Zeke, well, he never played with Zeke, but when DeMarco Murray showed up and they really run the ball and it could be balanced, he was even better. And I think that's what we're seeing is, they've got 4 guys, including himself, that have rushed for 400 yards in this year, including an 1,100-yard rusher. So they're spreading the ball around. He can lean on a running game, and that just allows him to go do his thing. And so that's what makes Seattle so tough this year, is that they're probably as balanced as they've ever been.
Well, and on the whole, this matchup, it's 2 similar teams. Cowboys favored narrowly in this rematch from Week 3, and as you said, a lot has changed since then. But this is a Dallas team that's been dominant at home this year, 7-1. What are the keys to victory?
Well, I think, it sounds like what any junior high team would say against the next junior high team. You got to stop the run. I mean, that's really where it begins with this team. You do need to stop the run. That's what happened in that Week 3 game way back. Carson had over 100 yards. Now, it took him about 33 carries to do it, but you don't get 33 carries if you're not moving the chains, keeping the ball. And so the Cowboys couldn't get off the field. That's how they're going to have to get off the field, is by stopping the run, forcing Russell Wilson to have to throw. And so I think that's the key right there. And then also from the offensive side of the ball, the Cowboys will probably move it. We know that they can move the ball, but they can't get down in the red zone and struggle. That's what's happened all year long. They got some issues at kicker. Brett Maher can make a 59, 62-yarder, but he'll miss some kicks that are about extra point range as well. So when you get down in that red zone, scoring touchdowns are going to be huge for this team, not just to get points, but also to prevent, maybe some potential misses at field goal.
Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot. And again, I know you write for DallasCowboys.com, but your bosses, they're not listening. How about a prediction?
I've really been on the fence all year long. And somebody told me I was 8-8 this year, picking games. So it really wasn't that great for me picking the Cowboys and and picking against them. I just didn't have a great feel. I don't have a great feel for this one for the Cowboys. I just feel like it's going to be one of those tough ones. But 7-1 at home. You said it. 7-1 at home. They've been really good there. The place is going to be rocking. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think the Cowboys win it. Let's say 17-16. It's going to be close.
Nick Eatman, thanks a lot, sir. We'll do it again.
All right, thank you.
Well, if you can't wait for this show to end, you and Jeff Elric have a lot in common. But we have less than 10 minutes left, so stay with us. Reed Fowler right there with Jeff on the right. I don't know why he didn't like that. All right. So we're going to try and kill some time, next 8-9 minutes or so, talking about the NFC Wildcard Showdown contest because, again, you got two big games coming up this weekend.
Yep. Let's start with the one you just talked about with Nick Eatman. Prices are out for this one. It's Seahawks and Cowboys on Saturday night. Reed, who's your early pick for captain in this showdown?
Yeah, I really like Chris Carson. I think one of the more interesting stories, obviously, with the Seattle Seahawks playing really well and getting into the playoffs. Carson now has averaged, he's eclipsed 20 DK fantasy points over his last 3 games, and he's doing it on 52% of the snaps, also averaging around 120 yards. And Dallas, if you look at what they've been doing over that same time frame, their rush defense, which has been historically good this season, has allowed more than 120 yards to opposing running backs on the ground. Chris Carson is that guy. He kind of brings it back to old school. He just runs right for you. He runs, quote unquote, downhill. I never know what that means. But at the same time, it's a guy that we can confidently put in that captain spot and see it, top 10 in terms of attempts per game, which is really crazy because he only gets 50% of the snaps. This is the number 2 rush offense in the league right now, and Baltimore being number 1. Carson is going to be my captain's pick.
Yeah, he's developed into a bona fide workhorse, no question about it. Last 3 games of the season, at least 22 fantasy points. 14,100 in your captain spots, though. Jeff, who are you going with?
Yeah, this is a really interesting game. These two teams just seem so equally matched and so similar in so many aspects that, especially from a fantasy perspective, it's kind of difficult to sort through some of these plays because they're so condensed in their offenses as well. But I'm going to stick with my earlier take. I'm just going to say Amari Cooper. I think Reed is right. I think Seattle might be the more polished team coming into this matchup, and I think they could jump on the Cowboys here with their running game, et cetera, whatever, and force the Cowboys into more of a passing offense at some point in this game. So I think that only bodes well for Cooper. I already went over the matchup, which I think is great for him. Obviously, if you see Trey Flowers, that's a great thing. But regardless of who's covering him, it should be a plus matchup for Amari Cooper this week against a secondary that just does not stop number 1 receivers very well at all. So Cooper's done well in Cowboy Stadium as well. So everything to me points to this being an Amari game. I do think the Cowboys might be behind at some point. So,
Jeff, let's stay with you. Keep you talking here. How about best value play in this matchup?
Yeah, again, I mean, these offenses are so condensed. It's not like we have a ton of great value to pick from. I'm looking at Brent Meyer, the kicker from the Cowboys. I think he's almost nearly a must roster in this spot. He's averaging almost 5 points more per game at home. He's accurate. He's got a big leg. And Jason Garrett loves to kick field goals. So when you get in the situation of if he's going to go for it or not, he's almost always going to take the field goal. So why not just take the kicker? There's obviously, it's not that exciting an option. But again, all the other options down there are just so boom or bust, so sort of roll the dice that I think you got to take the kicker in this spot and then pay up for the more reliable options.
Reed, do you have any more conviction as far as a value play?
You don't want to choose Seabass, Jeff, the Polish Hammer?
Seabass sucks. He's like 60 now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like
he's
6
the
pounds
guy
overweight.
Like, find me.
Yeah. No, I think Rashad Penny. Look, if Mike Davis is out, right, he's been dealing with some injuries. I think Rashad Penny has some upside. He's not getting any snaps, any touches. I mean, he saw 4 snaps and got 4 touches the last game, so this is a shot in the dark, and you have to wait until that Davis news is out. But this is a team that runs the ball 37 or ran the ball 37 times over the last 3 games. So having said that, just some simple math, you could get around 16 touches for a guy who now has quote unquote fresh legs. He hasn't played in the past few games. And if he gets 40 to 45%, like the Seahawks spent draft equity to get this guy in the first round. And we always talk about fresh legs around this time. If he gets that workload and he's at the price tag, which is pretty cheap because he hasn't seen a lot of snaps, I think that could translate into red zone opportunities. Like Jeff mentioned, if the Seahawks are up and they're trying to kill the clock, putting in a rotation of Carson and Penny could yield a touchdown. And that's all we need from this guy, right, at his price tag. So give me Penny in the value spot.
Yeah, the other cheap Seahawk I don't mind there is Ed Dixon. Tight ends have been pretty good against the Cowboys this year. But again, you need a touchdown from him because he ain't getting volume. So,
Jeff, by the way, Chris Knight on Facebook is laughing at you and your kicker pick. He says, did he say Dallas's kicker is accurate? And then a bunch of emojis of
I said he's accurate at home.
Okay, well, take it up with Chris Knight. Log on Facebook and get back at him.
I'm not looking up the home road splits for the kicker. We don't have that kind of time.
Neither am I.
Jeff.
That's my job,
but
Kaufman.
I trust Jeff like 60%.
I know you're doing. Don't do it.
All right, now to the other NFC wildcard game on Sunday. Prices are not out for this one, so again, get creative. It's Jeff's team, led by Jeff's favorite player. That would be the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles and Nick Foles. Traveling to Chi-Town to face the Bears. So, Mr. Elric, who's going to captain your lineup?
You know, it's a tough game for me because I really like the Bears this year too, Emerson. I don't have a team. I just like float around year to year, like aimlessly. So I'm going to go with Tariq Cohen. I think everyone's sort of getting on the Jordan Howard bandwagon now because he had a couple good games, but this is a bad spot. The Eagles are pretty good at stopping the run, but they're really not good at limiting running backs out of the backfield as receivers. And Tariq Cohen led the Bears in receptions this year with 71. I really think this is a spot too. When you look at the Bears lineup, Allen Robinson banged up, might not play. Taylor Gabriel banged up, might not play. I think another one of the receivers might be banged up. I can't even remember the guy's name, but it doesn't matter because I think they're going to have to use Cohen regardless of if they want to or not. And Cohen to me is just perfect for DraftKings PPR, especially when the Bears get in sort of close games where they actually have to pass. And I think that might be the case. I think Nick Foles is going to keep this semi-close. I think this is a really good spot for Cohen. He also brings the special teams. So if you like the Bears' defense, you can pair him with Tariq and get the double dip.
Reed, who are you feeling here?
Yeah, one of my New Year's resolutions was to disagree with Jeff more, but I can't in this spot. I think it's a perfect spot for Cohen. Look, he's averaging 6 targets at home, a little over 16 DK fantasy points. He's in a smash spot. Philly is 24th per DVA to pass-catching running backs. And a lot of people, Jeff's right, are on the Jordan Howard train. I don't know why. This guy, especially the way Matt Nagy wants to use him in the playoffs, he's throwing passes, he's punt returns, and he's just an all-around Swiss Army knife of a football player that in this time of the season, in the postseason, you need talented players who are able to break in. When you look at in terms of yards per touch and breakaway ability or big play ability, he's number 1 and number 3 respectively in those categories. He's got 10% of plays at over 15 yards. He's number 1 in that category, and he's 3rd in terms of yards per touch at 7 yards. This guy is an explosive player, and this is exactly what you need in the postseason. So Tariq Cohen is a perfect call there.
Well, Reed, since I'm more confident in Jeff's ability and willingness to disagree with you, I'm going to let you go first here. Where do you find value in this matchup?
Yeah, I think it's Darren Sproles. If the Eagles want to win, right, it's got to be on Nick Foles' back. He has to play one of his best games, pending that he's playing in this game, which I think he is. It's Darren Sproles. He has the most positive correlation with him, and I think this is going to be a game where Philly is going to be playing catch up, and Darren Sproles is that guy in the backfield. I mean, Chicago is 10th per DVOA to pass catching running backs. This is the one spot in their defense that they have some trouble with. Eddie Jackson is a guy who plays that free safety role. He's still a little banged up. He's one of the better, if not the best safeties in football right now. I think if they lose him, they lose some of that ability to guard these guys out of the backfield, especially Darren Sproles, who, if you look at the other side, is a Tariq Cohen, a little bit older version of Tariq Cohen. I think he has to be that guy that you have to use for value.
Jeff, I set you up to disagree with Reed. What do you have for value?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple plays. I mean, I always disagree with Reed because his picks are always horrible, right? So Sproles is fine. I'm just kidding. But look, Dallas Goedert on the Eagles. Look, everyone's going to be on Zach Ertz. Like I said, the Bears are probably going to shut down Zach Ertz at least enough that he's not going to hit value. I think Dallas Goedert is a cheap play who's really utilized in the red zone, actually a decent amount by the Eagles, and has been seeing some good targeting of late. I think he's definitely in play for this game. And then Josh Bellamy, Anthony Miller was the other Bears receiver who's hurt. He actually dislocated his shoulder, so he seems unlikely to play, although he might. But Josh Bellamy would be the guy to see more snaps if one or two of those receivers don't play. I like Josh Bellamy as a value here too.
Real quick, Jeff, loyal viewer of the program, Dylan Schmittler, coming in on Facebook in your defense, saying Maher is 18 for 20 on field goals at AT&T Stadium. I think you're onto something here, Jeff.
No time for you to respond and gloat, I'm afraid. No, sorry, Jeff, we can't hear you. We got to leave. The sweat continues tomorrow. See ya!